Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls for making international systems and institutions more inclusive, democratized, participative and fair. Delivers remarks at the third summit of democracy. Asserts India has an ancient and unbroken culture of democracy. World leaders convene for the first ever nuclear energy summit in Brussels to discuss how nuclear power can help drive sustainable development. Antony Blinken to meet with ministers of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Jordan and a top Palestinian official in Cairo as efforts continue to secure a ceasefire, even as Netanyahu tells US Republican senators that Gaza war will continue. Wall Street gains steam as Federal Reserve keeps 3 rate cuts on the horizon, also keeps key lending rate unchanged for the 5th consecutive time. News in detail now. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday emphasized the need for inclusivity, fairness and participative decision-making in international systems and institutions. He said this while delivering the leaders' plenary of Third Summit for Democracy.
In the era of turmoil and transitions, democracy faces many challenges. This requires us to work together. Democratic countries should lead the efforts in making international systems and institutions more inclusive, democratized, participative, and fair. Only through such shared efforts will we be able to fulfill the aspiration of our people. And we will also lay the foundation of a secure, stable and prosperous future for the generations to come.
When calling Summit for Democracy a crucial platform for democracies worldwide to exchange experiences and learn from each other, the Prime Minister reiterated that India has an ancient and unbroken culture of democracy.
India has an ancient and unbroken culture of democracy. It has been the lifeblood of Indian civilization. Consensus building, open dialogue, and free discussion have resonated throughout India's history. That is why my fellow citizens consider India to be the mother of democracy.
And the world's first nuclear energy summit will focus on using nuclear power in sustainable development. Officials and energy executives from all over the world are attending Thursday's summit in Brussels. They are expected to discuss how atomic energy can pave the way for a net zero carbon emissions future. DD India's Ishan Garg has more from Brussels.
The summit is hosting a mix of politicians, scientists and energy company executives. It's being organized by the International Atomic Energy Agency and Belgium, which currently holds the rotating presidency of the European Council. Belgium's Prime Minister Alexander De Croo says an energy crisis sparked by Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine has emphasized the need for green energy. And the Nuclear Energy Summit will enable partners to discuss ways to harness atomic energy for a sustainable future. The day-long summit will delve deep into the fundamentals of using nuclear energy for civil purposes. Several panel discussions during the day will focus on harnessing electricity from nuclear fuel as well as developing cohesive nuclear policies. The summit comes at a time when countries globally are making big pledges towards net zero carbon emissions. The issue was supported again at the COP28 Global Climate Summit in Dubai last year. India wants to become carbon neutral by 2070, while the EU wants to attain that target 20 years earlier. Financing climate-friendly energy projects, such as nuclear-powered ones, is a major hurdle for both, though. That conversation is expected to be front and center at this summit. Government officials and heads of energy bodies will discuss ways to finance projects, especially for developing nations. Host country Belgium says the use of nuclear energy will not only clean up the environment but also generate jobs and spur innovation. However, it is going to take a collective effort by the global community to make nuclear energy a sustainable reality. Ishan Garg in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
And United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken left Saudi Arabia for Egypt on Thursday after meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the port city of Jeddah on Wednesday. The US top diplomat will meet the foreign ministers of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, the Emirati International Cooperation Minister and the Secretary General of the Palestinian Liberation Organization in Egypt on Thursday. The leaders will discuss Gaza ceasefire and efforts to deliver more humanitarian aid into Gaza. Talks on a truce brokered by Egypt and Qatar are resuming this week in Qatar. Earlier on Wednesday, Blinken also met his Saudi counterpart as efforts continue to secure a ceasefire in Gaza. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told US Republican senators on Wednesday that Israel will continue its efforts to defeat Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The conservative Israeli leader spoke to Republicans via video link nearly a week after the Senate's Democratic Majority Leader Chuck Schumer gave a speech in the Senate criticizing Israel-Gaza conflict. Meanwhile, Netanyahu said in a televised address on Wednesday that preparations were underway for RAF operation in the southern Gaza Strip. However, he also said that such an action will take some time. Adding further, he said that he will soon approve a plan for the evacuation of Palestinian civilians from conflict areas.
I want you to know that I have already approved the IDF's operational plan, and soon we will also approve the plan to evacuate the civilian population from the battle zones. As we are preparing to enter Rafah, and this will take a little time, we are continuing to operate in Khan Yunus, in the camps, in the center, in eliminating and capturing senior Hamas officials, as we have just done in Shifa.
And several countries have continued to airdrop food into Gaza despite the challenging circumstances, as aid through road and sea routes remain slow. The flights provide a lifeline for a small number of Palestinians in the enclave. DD India correspondent Alex Kadia reports more from Jordan.
Well, the United Nations has warned that tens of thousands of people in Gaza could be facing famine in a matter of weeks if things don't change. And like here with the Royal Jordanian Air Force, for days now they have been trying to airdrop supplies into the Gaza Strip. This particular C-130 Hercules aircraft is loaded with 8 tons of food, of baby powder, of anything that these starving families in Gaza could need. But they recognize that this aircraft can only carry about half a truck's worth of supplies. And we know that Gaza needs 500 trucks on a daily basis. So they are doing what they can, but some of the crews operating these flights recognize that this is just a drop in the bucket. Alex Kadia in Jordan, reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, the Israeli army found Hamas weapons, money and operatives during their raid at Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. The IDF released a video on Wednesday which showed soldiers uncovering rifles and a rocket launcher. The IDF also claimed that over 50 Palestinian gunmen were killed and 180 suspected militants were detained during the raid on Al-Shifa hospital. Israel's raid at the hospital began in the early hours of Monday. IDF said it had sent in special forces based on intelligence that the hospital was again being used by Hamas. Now, updates from Russia-Ukraine conflict. A Russian missile on Wednesday hit an industrial area in Ukraine's northern city of Kharkiv, killing 5 people and injuring at least 8 and causing a major fire in a printing house. Kharkiv region, which borders Russia to the north and lies close to the front line, has suffered regular attacks during the war. Rescuers rushed to the site to fight flames covering an area of more than 2,000 square meters. The mayor of Kharkiv, Ihor Terekhov, said 5 others were missing after the strike. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the strike underscored the lack of proper air defenses in Kharkiv. Russia launched a missile attack on Kiev early on Thursday, injuring at least 10 people and damaging residential buildings and industrial facilities, although air defenses downed all the missiles. Ukraine's air defenses shot down all 31 Russian missiles targeting the capital, the Air Force commander said. Air alerts lasted for nearly 3 hours. Now, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said during a trip to Kiev on Wednesday that a major U.S. aid package that has been blocked by Republicans for months would get to Ukraine and vowed that Washington's support would continue.
We have stood by your side since this war began. We have provided enormous support, and we will continue to do so every day in every way we know how. Now, I know there are questions here because of the back and forth in our Congress in the months that have gone by without the supplemental bill coming through, the package of aid that you rightly deserve and that President Biden is fighting for every day, the $60 billion that the Senate has passed on a bipartisan basis, and now we're working with the House to pass. But from our perspective, we are confident we will get this done. We will get this aid to Ukraine.
And the Netherlands is providing Ukraine with €350 million for F-16 fighter jet ammunition and advanced reconnaissance drones, Dutch Defense Minister Karl Ollongren announced in Kiev on Wednesday. At the Ramstein Group meeting of Ukraine's allies, Ollongren said €150 million will fund guided air-to-ground missiles that can be fired from F-16s, while $200 million will go to intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance drones. During the meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, Ollongren said the Ukraine could continue to count on our support.
I think also we always want to show our solidarity also by visiting your country. And I went to Dnipro yesterday also to visit the region and some military facilities there, and to see with our own eyes the great effort that your armed forces are doing and the great courage that your men and women are showing every day in this war. And you can continue to count on our support.
And the unrest food crisis persists in Cuba as residents grapples with continuous power cuts and hunger. Cuba is battling its worst economic crisis in decades, caused in part by the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw the flow of much-needed tourism dollars plunge. The Cuban government points finger at US after hundreds of people demonstrate against food shortages and blackouts. Elon Musk brain chip startup Neuralink live-streamed on Wednesday its first patient implanted with the chip using his mind to play online chess. Nolan Arbach, the 29-year-old patient who was paralyzed below the shoulder after a diving accident, played chess on his laptop and moved the cursor using the Neuralink device. The implant seeks to enable people to control a computer cursor or keyboard using only their thoughts. Arbach had received an implant from the company in January and could control a computer mouse using his thoughts.
The only way I could play it. The surgery was super easy. I literally was released from the hospital a day later. I have no cognitive impairments. I had basically given up on playing that game. Y'all gave me the ability to do that again, and I played it for 8 hours that day.
And rising unhappiness among younger people causes the United States and some large Western European countries to fall down a global well-being index. The United States dropped from the top 20 happiness list for the first time, falling to 23rd place from 15th last year due to a big drop in the sense of well-being of Americans aged under 30. The findings are at odds with much previous research into well-being, which found happiness highest in childhood and early teens. Millennials and younger age groups in North America were significantly more likely than older age groups to report loneliness. Indonesia's Election Commission on Wednesday formally declared Prabowo Subianto the winner of February 14 presidential election, winning most number of votes. Prabowo, a three-time presidential candidate, is expected to take over from outgoing President Joko Widodo, known as Jokowi, in October. The former Special Forces commander and current Defence Minister Subianto won the February 14 contest with nearly 60% of votes, a resounding win over rivals Anis Baswedan and Ganja Pranowo, who received about 25% and 16% of votes respectively, according to the official tally of the election body. Now, Leo Varadkar unexpectedly stepped down as Ireland's Prime Minister, saying the country's coalition government would stand a better chance of re-election under another leader. Varadkar's Fine Gael party will open nominations for a new leader on Thursday, with the results to be announced on April 5th. Parliament would then vote on the person succeeding Varadkar as Prime Minister after it returns from Easter recess on April 9th. The shock departure of Varadkar, who returned to the Premiership just 15 months ago, does not trigger a general election. A vote must be held by March 2025. Now, Portugal's president has named Luís Montenegro head of the centre-right Democratic Alliance as the country's new Prime Minister and invited him to form a minority government. The AD won a parliamentary election on March 10 by a slim margin, far short of working majority. 51-year-old Montenegro has repeatedly said his party is prepared to govern on its own and will not negotiate with the far-right party Chega to work together. After being named Premier, Montenegro said that the government would be sworn in on April 2nd. We'll slip into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. IAAF inducts a helicopter unit at the Air Force Station Thanjavur in Tamil Nadu to ensure availability of sufficient resources. India at 3 points in FIFA World Cup qualifier against weakened Afghanistan.
How does the world's largest democracy hold the world's biggest election? Watch Connecting the Dots to get the full picture. Every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. The passage of British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's contentious bill to deport refugees to Rwanda may be delayed until at least next month. Unelected members of the House of Lords, largely made up of former politicians and government officials, voted on Wednesday for a second time to amend the legislation to put more safeguards in place to protect the rights of asylum seekers. However, Wednesday's decision by the Lords to reinstate at least some of its original changes means that PM Sunak faces a race against time to make good on his commitment to start the process of sending asylum seekers to Rwanda before June. The UK government says that Rwanda plan is designed to deter migrants from attempting to cross the English Channel, one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, to reach Britain. Australia and United Kingdom on Thursday signed a new defence and security cooperation agreement. The agreement aims at bolstering defence cooperation between the two countries as it eases their defence forces to operate together in each other's countries. According to the treaty, the two nations will have to consult each other if they come under threat. Australia is boosting defence interoperability and military exercises with the United States and regional partners after a defence review last year said China is undertaking the largest military build-up of any country since the end of World War II. Now, the United States has said it recognizes Arunachal Pradesh as Indian territory and strongly opposes any unilateral attempts by China to advance its territorial claims across the line of actual control. State Department Principal Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel said this days after the Chinese military reiterated its claim over the state following Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit there.
The United States recognizes Arunachal Pradesh as Indian territory, and we strongly oppose any unilateral attempts to advance territorial claims by incursions or encroachments, military or civilian, across the line of actual control.
Now, the Indian Air Force on Wednesday said they have inducted a helicopter unit at the Air Force Station Thanjavur in Tamil Nadu. The Indian Air Force said that the induction of the helicopter unit at Thanjavur would ensure availability of sufficient resources with the headquarters of Southern Air Command. It would enhance operational capabilities as well as meet the peacetime task of search and rescue, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief and casualty evacuation. The induction of helicopter unit took place on March 19th. The Indian Coast Guard ship Rajdoot on Wednesday rescued as many as 8 crew members of a distressed vessel. The distressed ship IFB Ashmir I had a major flooding at sea approximately 10 nautical miles west of Kundapura off the coast of Karnataka. Indian Coast Guard ship Rajdoot reassured the crew and provided de-flooding assistance. After confirming safety of boat and crew, it handed over the disabled boat to buddy boat IFB Goldfish for further towing towards Gangoli harbour. The rescue operation took place on March 20th. Now let's get you the latest on what's happening in India in the run-up to the world's largest democratic election. Now, conducting polls in India, which has over 968 million voters, is no mean feat. Our next report tells you more about the logistics behind the world's largest election.
$968 million. That's the number of registered voters in India. It is more than the combined population of the United States and the European Union. In 2024, nearly 50 countries including the US and Mexico are going to polls. More than 2 billion voters will cast their ballots and nearly half of them will be in India alone. The more you delve into numbers, you realize that conducting general elections in India is a mammoth exercise. India is the world's 7th largest country by land area, comprising 28 states and 8 union territories. The Election Commission will conduct the 2024 general elections to elect 543 lower house members in 7 phases from April 19th to June 1st. The results will be out on June 4th. Over 15 million election officials will be deployed across 1 million polling stations throughout the country. Over 5.5 million electronic voting machines will be used for the exercise. Of the total 968 million voters, 497 million are male, 471 million are female, while about 48,000 belong to the third gender. Also, nearly 18 million voters will exercise their franchise for the first time ever. Let's also take a look at the key statistics of the last Indian general elections that were held in 2019. There were over 900 million eligible voters, out of which 600 million people cast their ballots. The final turnout stood at over 67%, the highest ever for any general elections to date. Nearly 4 million electronic voting machines were deployed across 1 million polling stations, and over 8,000 candidates and 670 parties were in the fray. That's not all. The polls, which cost 600 billion rupees, are the world's second most expensive elections after the 2020 US presidential election.
India's Minister of State in PMO and Bharatiya Janata Party candidate Dr. Jitendra Singh will file nomination paper for Udhampur Lok Sabha constituency on Thursday in Kathua in Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Ahead of filing of nominations, senior BJP leader and Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh offered prayers at his residence in Jammu. After filing nomination, Dr. Jitendra would also address a massive rally at Ram Leela ground in Kathua. Filing of nominations for the first phase of Lok Sabha polls had begun on Wednesday, kicking off the mammoth process for the general election set to be held from April 19 to June 1st. The West Bengal Congress President Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary on Wednesday said that the party has decided candidates for 7 Lok Sabha seats in the state. Chaudhary said that a formal announcement of the seats and the candidates will be made by All India Congress Committee. The Communist Party of India Left Front has not announced candidates on these 7 seats, indicating an electoral understanding between the Left Front and the Congress in the state. The Trinamool Congress has already announced candidature on 42 seats of the state. All right, business updates now. Wall Street's main stock indexes close higher on Wednesday after the Federal Reserve eased investor jitters by keeping borrowing costs unchanged and reinforcing expectations that rates could be cut as many as 3 times this year. Stocks added to gains after Fed Chair Jerome Powell said in a press conference that despite recent inflation data coming in hotter than expected, the numbers haven't really changed the overall story. The S&P 500 gained 0.89%, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 1.25%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 1.03%. Now, social media platform Reddit priced its initial public offering at the top of its targeted range of $31 to $34 per share on Wednesday. Reddit and its existing shareholders sold 22 million shares at $34 a share, giving Reddit a valuation of about $6.4 billion. Excluding the shares sold by existing shareholders, Reddit raised gross proceeds of $519.4 million from its IPO. Moving on to soccer now, India will take on lower-ranked Afghanistan in Abha town of Saudi Arabia on Thursday in the second round qualifying match of FIFA World Cup 2026. 3 points from this match can take India closer to dream of making it to the third round of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers, something that remains elusive ever since their first participation in the qualifiers in 1985. The Blue Tigers will hope to build on their tally of 3 points from the World Cup qualifiers, where they beat Kuwait 1-0 and lost 0-3 to Qatar in November. India will again face Afghanistan in the 4th matchday in Guwahati on March 26th. Afghanistan lost both their matches so far by big margins of 1-8 to Qatar and 0-4 to Kuwait. India currently occupies second place in Group A. Reigning Asian champion Qatar leads the Group A, while Kuwait is second and Afghanistan is at the bottom. That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.